Welcome on to the next edition of the Faster Beyond 50 podcast. And today, a super interesting deep dive into the world of artificial intelligence. And I can almost feel your eyes rolling already because the world and their dog are talking about AI and how it's going to take over the world. But I thought it was important to talk about it today because it is something that's really becoming quite a thing in the running space, and particularly for runners over 50. So I'm joined today by head coach at coachparry.com, Lindsey Parry. Lindsey, welcome. Nice to touch base again and talking about one of my favorite things, tech. This is a big topic that's on sort of everyone's tongue at the moment.
Absolutely, Brad. And it's like it is a little bit scary. But like everything, it's got massive pros and cons. But I think its best application is really introducing people to coaching that otherwise would never ever. And I'm using the term coaching loosely here, but it introduces people to coaching that have never ever have thought about it or would be too scared to approach a human being because they feel like they're not good enough, or the coaching's only for elites and that kind of nonsense. So yeah, very, very topical at the moment. And as you keep telling me, just moving so very fast at the moment.
Yeah, absolutely. And Linz, just as full disclosure here too, I think we're not going to bash any platforms. We're going to talk about specifics and a bit of a broader sort of high level look at different types of AI, because the truth of the matter is there are levels, and not all AI that these tools are using are created the same. Some are doing different things. They're using different models. They're using different things sort of below the surface, which we're going to touch on. But we are also here at Coach Parry working on something, and I'm going to pop a link down in the description if you want early access to it. It's called smartrunning.coach. You can go to the website right now, go and have a look. If you want sort of early access and you want to help us test it, you're more than welcome to. We've got a ton of data that's come through our platform over the last sort of 8-9 years. We've had over 6 million workouts logged on the Coach Parry training app. So we've got a lot of data that we've been able to use. Obviously, we've got permission from some of our users for us to use. Not some of our users. We've asked our users, would they like us? Oh, let me phrase this properly. Are we able to use their data to train an AI learning model? And some of them said yes, some of them said no. The ones who said no, we haven't used their data. The ones who said yes, we've used their data. So there's just a bit of clarity on that. We think we're building something pretty cool. So if you want to go check it out, smartrunning.coach, the link is in the description below. But Lindsey, I say there are levels because you're talking about using AI as a coach. Just like with coaching, there are different levels. And I think let's talk about that as well. Like if you have an app that gives you a generic plan versus a one-on-one coach, take AI out of this. Those are two very, very different experiences. Are they both coaching? Technically, yes. But talk to me about the big differences.
Oh, absolutely. I mean, one is a program that a coach has, from their experience, gone, this is how people generally respond to training. And if we are a little bit conservative, we can take out some of the riskier elements so that somebody can, with fair confidence, follow a plan and get to an outcome. Now, is that going to make you the best runner that you can possibly be? No. Does it take out all the risk? Absolutely not, because that plan can never have a clue as to how much you're sleeping, how you're feeling.
How
Two
stressed you are.
beginner runners aren't going to progress at exactly the same rate. So you kind of trying to be in the bell curve. This is the majority of people will respond well to this plan. So that's kind of, so yes, it's a coach taking the experience and giving you a roadmap that's got a reasonable chance of success, depending on exactly what you call success. Now, if you go and see a coach, whether you're a beginner runner trying to just run a marathon just to finish it, whether you're a very serious amateur athlete just trying to set your own PBs, beat yourself, or whether you're trying to make the step up into like a competitive age group, elite sort of environment, then a coach helps you to push the envelope. Do we get it wrong sometimes? Obviously. But some performance games really require us to be right on the edge. But then you are taking in all sorts of feedback from the athletes. You're getting verbal responses, you're getting written responses, you are seeing some physiological responses, depending on the platform that you're using and how you coach. Then you've got online coaches versus in-person coaches, and there are pros and cons to both of those. There's some coaches that believe in the eye test. Like, you can't coach what you can't see, because if you can't look the person in the eye, you can never truly know what's going on inside them. But yeah, I mean, I think that gives you a nice idea of the broad spectrum. Is not all coaching is coaching. We operate quite heavily in the online training space, and I'm often, when I start working with clients, I'm often, one of the things I'm blown away by is that they often say, "I can't believe I get to speak to you." I mean, there are loads of coaches where you can email them questions, um, and they basically coach you from the feedback that they get from whatever platform they're using, and maybe some questions they ask you. But this concept of actually physically looking me in the eye over Zoom or a similar platform, they often like, "We can't believe we get to talk to you." So there's all sorts
Yeah.
of and in between, and yeah, depends how everybody does it and what you need.
And obviously, we're going to be talking lots about AI today, but I wanted to make this point because within our business, we have variances of what people can get to it. And I think it's a cool way to look at this is how our business started and why it is in the form that it is now. When you and I first started working together, you were only doing one-on-one coaching. So, and most of it was in person. Like, you did have some sort of online, but most of it was looking someone in the eye. And you, like every single other human being on the planet, only has 24 hours in a day and 7 days in a week. So there's a limit to how many one-on-one coaching clients you can take on. When I started working with you, we were like, okay, cool, your coaching book is full. How do we scale and put your sort of expertise in front of more people? So we wrote PDF training plans. This is way back in the day that we used to email to people. So you could have one-on-one coaching with Lindsey, or you could get a PDF training plan that Lindsey wrote. And they were both Lindsey, but they were two very different experiences. Then over the years, we just decided, you know what, the better way to deliver these PDF training plans is through a training app, which is what we've now built. And over the years, we've figured out that, yes, there is a medium in between. So you could get the training plans, which you can get now on our platform, which are light, and they're not PDF training plans. They are customized to you and personalized to you in the sense that you can put in your threshold pace, and it works out your training paces for you. So you're not speaking to a coach, you're not seeing a coach. You've got this generic training plan that's personalized to where you are right now in your training. So it is a lot more personalized than a PDF training plan. Then the in-between is that training plan that's personalized to you, but you get access to a team of coaches, not just Lindsey. So in the forum, you can ask a question. We've got live strength classes. You can jump on a coaching call once a week. We've got a group coaching call that you can actually get some FaceTime with one of our coaches. If you have a question or you need some help, you can get those adjustments in that. So that's the middle tier. And then we've still got one-on-one coaching that you can have that one-on-one interaction with Lindsey or one of our other coaches. So those are the levels. It's coaching, but they are very, very different, all three of them. And the same goes for AI and what's going on in the world right now. And that's what I wanted to talk about today, Lindsey, because there's this massive buzz around artificial intelligence and what's happening and the platforms and that sort of thing. So we're not here to bash anyone. I think this is more of an educational piece that they're not all created equal. And that's the way I wanted to approach this thing is the training plan that ChatGPT spits out for you is very different to something that Garmin's AI plan builder is going to spit out to you, is very different to what we're building with smartrunning.coach. And there are different sort of levels and they do different things. So I think let's just touch on the large language models first, Linz. The ChatGPTs, and I always laugh about Strava. I did it again yesterday while we were preparing for this call. They call it athlete insights. And basically, I don't know if anybody's, I'm sure people have figured this out, but I put a couple of comments in the same run. So I did a run, and then in the comments, I was like, very windy, super gassy, very uncomfortable. And it basically said, this is what your run was, and it was very uncomfortable. It's basically just rewording what I wrote in the description. On the same run, I then said, geez, toe was sore, bleeding a lot, not nice. And then it mentioned how my toe was uncomfortable, and it's not. So to me, there is an element of AI in there, but like, does it actually add any value?
No, so I think the large language learning models and the kind of prediction models based on your past decisions. That's not artificial intelligence. All that's doing is regurgitating the mistakes that you've made. On one hand, it could be compared actually to that general training plan that you put out. So
Yeah.
yes, it might learn some good habits. It might pull off the internet what um, current
Best
trends
practices.
are, and it'll pull those current trends into what's going on. And so yes, potentially it's slightly better than just a general PDF, but the principle for me is very much the same. It's kind of putting in guardrails, and putting those guardrails based on what the trends are, and we know that trends aren't always the best thing right now. Trends are often the best marketing right now. So that's the danger that you faced with when you're doing like a ChatGPT style large language model. Um, yeah, so I think that there's some potential benefits in there, but that one for me is like just super risky. What is it learning from is always the question.
Yeah, yeah,
And
Lindsay,
so
if I can just
actually
if
jump
I
in there,
can,
and then I've got
yeah,
one other thing that I want to, yeah.
if I can just jump in on the ChatGPT thing, because ChatGPT is the big platform that a lot of people are using at the moment. And you can ask ChatGPT to write you a training plan, and it'll write you a fairly decent training plan, like just a generic, that sort of thing. But again, to me, that is not sort of machine learning. It's not taking where you are now, your past data, all of that sort of stuff. It's looking on the internet and the world's knowledge base at the moment. What does a good training plan look like? And to your point, Lindsay, you're not 100% sure where it's pulling from, what it's pulling from. Like there's lots of, I mean, we've spoken about this lots on this podcast and other podcasts we've done. There are different training philosophies. And one is not necessarily better than the other. They're different and they elicit similar responses. But if you start combining those things, you're going to get a very different result. Like we did a video on our main channel a while ago about the Norwegian threshold, like those double things. And it's very different to our sort of style of training at Coach Parry, where it's building a massive aerobic base. But if you combine those two things, they both work individually on their own. But if you combine them, you're going to get two different things. It's almost like taking a cake recipe and combining it with a loaf of bread recipe.
100%. And I saw this in triathlon a lot, Brad. That's a great example to use. As I saw it in triathlon a lot, where someone would come to me, they've got a triathlon coach and they just want me to do their running. And I'm like, well, I might be able to help, but I'm going to have to speak to the main coach, and we got to make sure that our philosophy combines. Otherwise, cycling and running, they're not as different as people think from a pure internal physiology point of view. So if you like pulling against this guy all the time, or some triathletes have a swim coach, a cycle coach, and a run coach, and they that's kind of what happens if you start getting different philosophies pulling into the same running plan. And you're right, you're normally just working on too many things at the same time.
Mm.
And a stew with a few good ingredients is often way better than a stew with lots and lots of good ingredients that all just combine to make a mess.
Yeah, absolutely. So yeah, Lindsay, I think that is probably one of the big dangers with large language models. And yes, you can put guardrails in. I mean, there are people that are using it to create plans. They put guardrails in, but again, there's hallucination. Things change. What is sort of the better way to go about it? Like, because at the end of the day, we always talk about training for where you are right now. And as much as ChatGPT, for instance, knows your history and what the sort of questions you're asking, it never truly knows what's exactly going on inside you, where you are from a training perspective, how fit you are, how much stress you're under, what your heart rate's looking like, any underlying issues. So is it like having a tool that pulls in past data? Is that something, and then makes decisions on that past data? If you're over 50 and want to recover from sessions faster, run pain and injury free, and improve your endurance, then be sure to join Lindsay and I for our upcoming Faster Beyond 50 Masterclass. In it, we'll show you how we helped a 70-year-old run a 47-minute, 18-second 10K, and how you can take those exact same principles and apply them in your training. Simply scan the QR code that's on screen right now, or click on the link in the description below to save your seat in the training now. We look forward to seeing you there.
So that's literally what I was going to talk about when I said I wanted to actually discuss something else, and that is that these large language models can do a reasonably good job of also reverse engineering training data. Okay, so um, and that's one of the things that I've seen on some of the platforms that we've used in the past. I actually use more than one platform when I'm coaching. I use our platform, but I also have other platforms that users use, and they don't want to change platform. And what I see on a lot of those platforms is prediction models based on literal engineering. So they have noticed certain trends through using like data crunching, and then they've built an algorithm based on what they've observed. Okay, and again, that's a very bell curve model. That's like a large chunk of humans respond in this way. And so these language models can also crunch that data and come up with those exact same predictions. And they do work. And they do put in better guardrails than someone with no experience. So I think there is a place for this kind of thing, especially someone who's wetting their toe in the space and just wants something a bit better than a Word document or a PDF document. One of the problems with that, and it's a standard problem, so that's not just a problem when it comes to a ChatGPT type of thing, is that you have to be mindful of the quality of the data. Okay, so if you're going to be making decisions on input data, and that if I'm a human coach, that is also rings true. You've got to make sure that the data that's going in there is reliable and repeatable. Okay, so don't worry so much whether a Sunto is better than a Garmin is better than a Polar, or that one's got better heart rate data and that one's got better GPS data. None of that stuff is actually super important. What's super important is that the unit you've got is providing high quality data that is reliable and repeatable. It's always measuring the same thing in the same way, and so that makes the results to each other comparable. Now, again, without like making the case too strong for the personal coach, that's where some human still needs to be taken into account, because you have to be able to match up the data versus the how that I feel, because that's part of what lets you determine if that data is in fact reliable and repeatable. And so you need to use these models to help you make decisions, but don't let the model make the decision for you. I think that's for me is really where you can self-coach quite nicely using these plans, as long as you don't hand over all autonomy to a learning language model that you're not 100% sure where it's pulling all the stuff from, and you're fairly sure that the data it's putting in is good data, but then you have to add the element of I feel like this, or I slept like this, or somebody died. I mean, like your unit, even when if your HRV changes and someone in your family died and you don't sleep for 3 days because that stuff, that where is the stuff coming from? How do we respond to it?
Yeah, and Lindsey, I want this to be a sort of discussion. We obviously don't know all the answers, and we're all sort of navigating this as we go. So if you've got any sort of suggestions or comments or questions, please pop them into the comments below this video. If you're watching on YouTube as well, feel free to reach out on the link if you're listening on the podcast player that you listen on to. But what I did want to sort of touch on there too, Lindsey, is you saying that they're great tool to help you self-coach where you are still making the decision. The danger there does come in, we see it all the time too, is that unless you know what it should be doing or what it should look like, then if you still make a decision, you might be wrong. So it might be giving you data that looks good to you, but if you don't actually know then you're making decisions on a faulty premise to start with. And that often, I always joke, like in the IT space, like there's a few types of people. The first one knows absolutely nothing, and like if something breaks, they phone someone to come and fix it. Then the other end of that spectrum is someone who knows their way around, and if something breaks, they can fix it, and they're comfortable and they're happy. And then the vast majority of people are somewhere in between. And that's probably the most dangerous, because they know enough to break something, but they don't know how to fix it. So that's where most of us fall in. And it's the same in the running space. Like, you get out and out beginners who know absolutely nothing. And they're like, you know what? I just want a plan, or I want a coach to tell me what to do. I'm going to follow it blindly, and off you go. And then you get the guys who sort of can self-coach. They understand sports science. They know exactly what to do, and they can do it. But there's this massive group in between that think they know, but they don't. Like, it's just, and that's where it does become dangerous, using one of a tool like a large language model, where you don't actually know to question the data that it's spitting out.
It does. And I've had this conversation with a couple of coaches, especially when you could first write a plan with ChatGPT, and everyone was like so worried. But I actually look at that slightly different. I go, yes, that risk is absolutely there. But a lot of the people in that space that you're talking about are actually quite intelligent people. And what it does is it leads them down a path to realize that they don't know what they don't know. I mean, in all walks of life, you will get people that never work out that they don't know what they don't know. But for the vast majority, I feel like these kind of tools actually lead them down a path that lets them realize that they don't know what they don't know. And then that will get them into the next step, which is onto a platform that perhaps has found a better way of using the models, or gets them into an actual situation where there is at least some interaction with a human and a human coach, so that they can learn to navigate these things and make the right decisions.
Yeah, and then Lindsey, I wanted to sort of differentiate the next level. So we've spoken just about the out and out sort of document, but then we go the large language models. But there's, again, a difference between a large language model and something that's adaptive, that's actually using machine learning to look at the data and adapt training as you go. And those are two very different things as well. And you and I have both played around with different platforms. Again, I'm not going to mention any names, but I know myself as a runner. I'm not the smallest of human beings. I mean, I'm very tall. I'm big, and I know that I can't do too much volume. And one of the platforms that I use, it's one of the most popular ones around at the moment. I went in there on purpose because I wanted to see what happened if I wasn't compliant and I didn't do what I was supposed to do. Maybe I ran runs too hard, or I missed runs, or I did more than I was supposed to do. And one of the weeks, I actually missed runs on purpose. Not that I was running them, but I wasn't logging them, if that makes sense. And instead of looking at my training and going, because that's what I thought it was, like it's sold as like, this is what's going to happen. Instead of looking at what I did and then readjusting my training plan, it gave me the option to basically catch up everything that I missed the following week. So I could go, yeah, cool. I'm going to do, instead of doing 4 runs this week, I'm going to do 7 with 2 interval sessions. And it gave, as a user, it gave me that option. I could push yes, and it would then populate that into my training plan. And for me, that's where the danger of this comes. That's not adaptive training. That's just a large language model looking at what it's done and then just suggesting whatever. Whereas adaptive training, in my mind, and you can correct me if I'm wrong, is I've got a training plan that's created using artificial intelligence, right? It's taken previous data, knows where I am right now. It populates this training plan for my goal and what I'm trying to achieve. And let's say, for example, I miss a run, or I run my interval session too hard, or I run my long run, only do half the long run I was supposed to do. It looks at the training load for that week and goes, okay, cool, this is where we're supposed to be if we're going to reach the goal. And it adjusts my next week's or 2 weeks or 3 weeks training according to what I've just done. Doesn't make major changes, doesn't ask me to catch up. It just looks at where we're at, looks at what my goal is, and then adjusts it. Talk to me about your thoughts on adaptive training and using machine learning with the data that your wearable or whatever it is spits out, and how that can work.
And that's the frontier that we're at. That's what quite a few platforms are selling and not quite delivering. And I think that's because while we're building, we when we come with this thing, we want it to really do what it says it's going to do. And I think part of the issues in this, and we're experiencing this right now, is that if it's going to be done properly, it can actually come out with some wild stuff. Okay, so your algorithm is only as strong as its philosophy is. Now it's a machine, so I'm using words like philosophy, but it's a machine. So there are certain things that you have to build and put in certain parameters in place so that the machine can learn within those parameters. And then to your point, if you miss a session, strictly speaking, because there's been no input, there is going to be a change to everything. And so the machine will want to make changes immediately. Okay. What we know again from doing this over and over again is that physiology is not quite that sensitive, luckily. Otherwise, when we were evolving and we just needed a lazy Sunday, Monday, when we needed to get back to work, we wouldn't be able to get back to work because we would have lost something critical. So we know that it doesn't work like that. So there have to be certain things that the machine needs to be taught, so that it doesn't like make knee-jerk reactions to one bad run, one run that's too hot, one run that's. But as soon as it starts to pick up a pattern, and our fundamental fitness curve, or whatever the AI that you are or that platform is using, when that fitness curve adjusts by a certain percentage, changes need to be made, and they can't just be made for 1 or 2 days. That will impact then the whole plan. And then you mentioned something really important there. It's like, are you going to pin this AI to the end product? Okay. Because let's say you miss 2 weeks of training. Okay. If you're going to be rigid and not adjust, sorry, you can't see this, and you're not going to adjust, and people who are listening can't see that I'm holding my fist up either. But anyway, if you're not going to adjust the end product, I want to run a 340 marathon. Okay. But now I have missed 2 weeks of training. If I'm rigidly going to stick to the 340, how much change do I have to make between missing those 2 weeks and getting to the final product? And how am I sensibly going to make that change? Or is the system going to be flexible enough to say, you know what, with 2 weeks missed, that 240 may no longer be possible. We're going to adjust the training based on what we've done, so that we can sensibly get you back to full training. And somewhere along the line, if that machine learning is good enough and you as an organism are responding well enough, you might get back to 340, but you might end up at 345. And those are some of the real difficult technicalities that AI is still trying to figure out. But to your point, you can't have a system that's fail safe is so poorly defined that it'll let you catch up 3 missed workouts the following week, because that is a one-way street to an injury.
Yeah, absolutely. And Lindsey, I think the truth of the matter is there is no platform out there right now that has nailed this. That's the long and short of it. Some of them are doing some things really good. Some of them are doing things that they should be doing better really badly. But it's one of those things that today, as you're listening to this, is the best or is the worst it's going to be. It is only going to improve from here. That's the long and short of it. And we ran a survey into our database just a couple of months ago, and I was really excited to see the amount of people that are open to trying it. There's a percentage of our audience that goes, I'm not interested. I'm not climbing on that bus. Like, that's it. I'm done. It's almost like the fashion bus, Lindsey. You're on the fashion bus until you get to a certain point in your life.
Not
and you
getting
go,
a cell phone.
yeah.
Never getting a cell phone. You remember those guys?
then I'm not on this bus anymore. And there are people who are like that with artificial intelligence. Like, I don't want to know about it. But I think it's also important to know this, Linz, that the more I dig into it, the more I realize that so many of these tools have exactly the same underlying technology that's driving it. All it is a wrapper on top of something else. I think that's also important to know, that a lot of these tools are using the same underlying technology that is okay, but it's not perfect. That's what we do need to realize as well. I think that is super, super important. Anything else you wanted to add?
No, you actually said it best when you said, like, right now is the worst that it's going to be, that it's here to stay, that coaches also shouldn't be scared of it, because it's really going to help us to unpack loads of data. You asked me this question the other day. You're like, how much of this data do you use? And I look at a lot of data, but I often come back to the very few 3 to 4 things that I'm looking at, that I make my decisions on. And I feel like AI will help you to incorporate a couple more of those. And the more data we feed into it, the better it's going to narrow down and help all of us make better decisions. And so I think it's going to help runners who can't afford coaching. So we didn't even talk about that. There's the reality in this world is that not everybody can afford coaching. And I think that as these things improve, it's really going to help those individuals, but also coaches needn't be scared of it, because it's really going to help us to do our jobs better.
But Lindsay, I also think it's important to note, just on the cost side of things, that there is computing costs to running these sort of models too.
It's not going to be free.
Yeah, the more what's the word I'm looking for? The more complicated that computing is, the higher the cost is. So it will bring costs down to a point, but you still, good quality, whether it's human coaching or good quality AI coaching, is still going to be, it's still going to cost. That's the long and short.
No, absolutely. There's going to be a price to it. My point is that it's not as, it doesn't cost you as much to have to be plugged into a platform that's got a good AI system, than it would to have one-on-one coaching. I think that's the point I was making.
Yeah, absolutely. We've got a couple of videos coming up on this YouTube channel. One in particular, I mean, obviously ChatGPT is massive. One's coming up in the next month or two, where we've basically taken a look at risky running behaviors. So things that people do, and plug those into ChatGPT to see what the answers are that it spits out, and then basically got your opinion on what you would say to an athlete who came to you doing the same thing. And the outcomes are quite interesting, to be honest. And again, if you don't know, you don't know. You're asking this thing a question and expecting the right answer to come out, but there've been a few interesting questions. So that's coming out on this channel. Make sure you hit subscribe so you don't miss that. And again, this is a discussion and it's ongoing, and we want to know how you feel about it. Like, pop your comments into the comments below. Let us know your thoughts on AI. What are you using? Like, we want to know, what tools are you using? What are you loving? What do you think? Like, is this the future of running coaching? Like, let us know. Pop that into the comments below, and we look forward to hearing your input and hopefully taking this conversation a bit further. Linz, yeah, I'm super excited. I love this sort of stuff, and I think there's sort of lots of changes coming, and changes uncomfortable for a lot of people, but yeah, I think we just need to embrace it and see where it takes us.
Yeah, I'm looking forward to that video, but I feel like I'm going on to one of those radio stations where they set you up with your partner. They've asked a whole lot of questions and see how well you know your partner. But no, I'm the same, Brad. I'm very, very excited about the possibilities of good AI backed up by research. Yeah, as you said, it's only going to get better.
Yeah, and obviously there's lots of fear around it. People scared AI is going to take their jobs, but the truth of the matter is AI is not going to take your job. It's someone using AI that's going to take your job. So if you can use it and harness its power, it is incredible what it can do. So until next time, from the two of us, thank you so much for listening and watching, and we look forward to catching up again soon. Cheers, everyone. Bye-bye.